a big obstacle that is between the American people and what the American people want and need to happen in this country is partisan media, especially independent media, which is the most partisan of all. But of course, no one in independent media will admit that because it's a business. They're not doing this stuff as a charity, right? They're running an entertainment business. Essentially, that is the heart of American media, is entertainment, right? How can we maximize the views and clicks so we can therefore maximize the revenue which comes from the views and clicks? That is American media in short. That is the divide between the American people's desires and achieving those desires, getting the politicians to actually deliver the goods. Case in point, the Young Turks keeps talking about, we don't have a democracy anymore. We basically don't have a democracy anymore. Meanwhile, they literally made a video today talking about we don't want to lose our democracy. It was a video where they were talking about people who are looking for an alternative political system as opposed to democracy. They're increasingly skeptical of democracy, so they're looking for an alternative. And then they were saying, what's the alternative? Authoritarianism, blah, 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 and this is bad. Okay, is it that we don't have a democracy? Oh, we have a democracy, and we should be afraid that we might lose the democracy. First of all, I'll get your story straight. Notice how TYT keeps flip-flopping on democracy. Meanwhile, I stay consistent. I've always said we absolutely have a democracy. The democracy that we have absolutely works. Unfortunately, education is really bad in this country, so I have to add a little sort of caveat there. It's not a direct democracy, right? That's going to come from the conservative side, and it's not their fault. Again, the big divide between the American people and what they need and getting it is partisan media. So what's wrong with the conservative perspective? Hearing me talking right now, why is your mind thinking about direct democracy? Because of the partisan media you listen to, right? They are against democracy, right? So they try to create this caricature of democracy, which is direct democracy, where it's mob rule, right? That's their tactic. Create some kind of boogeyman to scare you away from something that goes against the establishment. That is essentially the heart of conservative media, protecting the establishment, protecting the GOP. Ultimately, they exist to keep you guys in the GOP. Unlike in left-wing media, in liberal media, they do a similar thing for sure, but in left-wing media, there's a lot of people who every day all they do is talk about the Democrats suck, right? They want to push for third party. Some of them want to push for no party. They want to push for let's do for self, right? They want to talk about collectives and cooperatives and things like that, right? But in the conservative media, you don't see a lot of that talk. It's all basically supporting the GOP. And what does the GOP exist to support? The corporations, the corporate donors, right? So democracy is problematic for those corporate donors, right? Because democracy is a tool at which the people get to exert their will, right? This is what we want. That's how you fend for yourself. Corporations want to, take advantage of you. Democracy is a weapon to stop the corporations from taking advantage of you. So, as a media that protects the corporations, right? Protecting the GOP, protecting the corporations, and this may not be a direct goal, right? Many of them, the goal is just profit. This is the most profitable way to do things, right? But regardless of whether it's intentional or unintentional, ultimately that's the effect, protecting the GOP, right? So democracy is a threat to these corporations, right? Because that's how we can protect ourselves from corporations taking advantage of them. Maybe not paying us what we're worth, not giving us the benefits that we should have, or whatever it is, right? Democracy is a threat. So therefore, conservative media needs to brainwash their audience into seeing democracy as a problem, right? So they create these sort of straw man, it's mob rule and direct democracy. And then also part of what you want to do is you want to show You make your audience feel like they're the smarter ones. Your political opponents are the idiots, right? So you say stuff like, the leftists, they don't even know what America is. They think America's a democracy. America is not a democracy. Okay, so they won't put that out there. We're not talking about direct democracy, all right? We are a, was it constitutional republic or democratic republic? It's a hybrid form of government. We're not just one thing or the other. We have a lot of democracy in how our country is run. We also definitely have the republic. Definitely we are a republic, right? But regardless, democracy 100% works. It's still very much very effective in this country. The fact that it seems that no matter who we vote for, the politicians we elect do their own thing and ignore us. This is the argument that TYT makes, right? They look at what are the most popular policies out there, right? And they look at the lack of support of these policies by our politicians. They're not really even trying to implement these policies. Why would they not try to implement the things that most of their voters want, right? Clearly there's a disconnect. They look at Congress not being functional. Congress is not, very well trusted or liked. And they look at this as signs of the democracy not working. This is utter nonsense. Part of the reason why we're not getting what we want is because we have people listening to people like the Young Turks telling you essentially that there's nothing you can do. Now, a big fan, and TYT themselves would argue that that is not what they say, and they do talk about solutions, right? And I'm well aware that of the solutions they offer, and I'm well aware that they don't literally say, hey, there is nothing you can do, but essentially, that is the message that many will get listening to the Young Turks, right? The system is completely corrupt. We don't have a democracy. I mean, this is what the Young Turks literally say. We don't have a democracy. And if we don't have a democracy, and that's the biggest power we have, then what can we do, right? What hope can we have if we don't have a democracy? Democracy is at the heart of our power in this country. So if you're telling your audience that we don't have a democracy, you are essentially telling them that it is hopeless, that there's nothing they can do. In spite of the fact that you may, in other contexts, say, here's something you can do, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is, if you are communicating at any time that democracy does not work, right? You are telling your audience that essentially there's nothing you can do. It's hopeless. Everything sucks. And what can you do? Let me tell you the reality. I'm going to talk to people who like Bernie Sanders, right? So there's people who like Bernie Sanders and wanted him to win. And those same people, if you talk to them, they'll tell you, look at how the Democratic Party establishment made sure that Bernie Sanders was not a thing, right? They will put all their money together and they will use their, power to block anyone that they see as a threat. Bernie Sanders was definitely seen as a threat, right? And the fact that Bernie Sanders seemed to have been, one of the most honest politicians that we've had in a while. He seems to be a politician that is, for the people, right? And the Democratic Party was able to just basically kick him out of the runnings, right? So the people want this guy, and the Democratic Party says no, right? And then people look at that as, oh, see, democracy doesn't work, right? If we get a person that's going to serve the people, our system is set up in such a way that that person won't get anywhere because the Democratic Party, the institution, the establishment, will block them, right? Listen, the way democracy works is we, the people, are the ones who elect our leaders, right? And the way we elect our leaders is through the election process, which is about votes, right? Ultimately, voting is how we elect politicians in this country. And how do you win? You win by getting the most votes, right? I don't give a rat's ass about how corrupt the Democratic Party is or the GOP is. I don't care how many millions of dollars they have. They could throw all the money in the world that they want. And I'm going to give you an extreme example to drive the point home. They could spend all the money, let's say $10 billion, the GOP and the Democratic Party spend each to block Bernie Sanders. Again, I'm creating an extreme example on all fronts so you get the point. 10 billion, 20 billion total spent to block Bernie Sanders. In that scenario, that's a waste of money because the most power in this country resides in the hands of the people. We, the people of the United States of America, we have the most power. You can spend all the millions you want. You cannot go against the will of the people. Some would say, what are you talking about? That's exactly what they did. You are incorrect. And again, I'm making an extreme example to make my point understood. Imagine if 300 million Americans wanted Bernie Sanders to be the president. 300 million Americans wanted Bernie Sanders to be president. Do you think that there's any amount of money that the Democratic Party or the GOP could spend that could do anything to stop Bernie Sanders from winning if he had 300 million strong? That is essentially the entire country, right? If the only people who didn't want Bernie Sanders to win was a few hundred politicians, right? A few hundred politicians afraid of their power being taken away. Bernie Sanders is a threat. If that is all they have, 300 and something politicians is all they have, there's nothing they could do. Spend away, put all the ads out that you want, do whatever bullshit that you want. Ultimately, Bernie Sanders wins if he has 300 million people supporting him. That is democracy, right? Our power is exhibited through our votes because our votes are the source or giving access to the power and money. And that's all our corrupt politicians care about is power and money, which they get from our votes. Without our votes, they lose their jobs. So if you have 300 million people that want Bernie Sanders, guess what? Bernie Sanders becomes the president of the United States. Why did Bernie Sanders lose? Not ultimately because of the Democratic Party, not ultimately because of the establishment. The reason why Bernie Sanders lost is because we the people did not utilize our democracy to make him win. How would we do that? Those who want him to be president would need to get enough people to agree with them and therefore vote for Bernie Sanders, right? That is how things work in this country, right? If they could have gotten enough people to believe in Bernie Sanders and therefore vote for Bernie Sanders would have won. Now, I gave an extreme example, 300 million. We don't need 300 million, right? But we need to have an overwhelming amount of numbers of people who are for the politician that we want to be. And that's just, and I'm talking specifically not just about like democracy. I'm talking more specifically about, because people look at, they put people in place. Like we can't even, like our votes mean nothing. Like they just select someone. That's nonsense, right? That's nonsense. Whoever gets the most votes is the one who wins. Remember what I said is between us and what we want in this country. Our partisan media, right? Partisan media has the power over our minds, right? If we don't think independently, think for ourselves, think critically, they have the ability to brainwash you with ideas like, we don't have a democracy. You think that will help with voter suppression? To have millions of Americans feel like we don't have a democracy, and then like, why should I bother voting? We don't have a democracy. Whoever I vote for is going to do whatever. How many votes are we missing because of the brainwashing of partisan media that are brainwashing us into accepting status quo, even those who speak about the exact opposite? Right? TYT will talk about, we need more, we need more, we need to demand more from our politicians and this and that, and the status quo is not good. There's people that are suffering and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, that same channel will tell you, you don't have a democracy, we don't have a democracy. And then in another video, oh, we have to protect democracy. What? I thought we didn't have a democracy. How are we going to protect something we don't have, Young Turks? One of the biggest problems we have in this country is partisan media. This entertainment business model where people are incentivized to do anything to get the most views and clicks, right? So you pander to the ideology of a certain audience, just like any other business. You target a certain demographic, right? I'm going to sell trucks. So I get into the mind of people who would want to buy trucks, and I try to appeal to them. Maybe the salesmen I hire are all truckers or former truckers, so they know how truckers think, right? They're gonna have the aesthetic of truckers, so when potential customers come in, they feel at home, like, okay, we're on the same page, yeah, I run a business too, and my truck, you know what I mean? Like, they're gonna appeal to the demographic of the potential customers, right? No different in American media, right? So TYT targeting progressives. So the focus is on, generating content that's going to maximize their revenue, right? So if that's their priority, right, they could potentially not even realize how much damage they're doing to the country by, again, sloppy wording, sloppy messaging, talking about, we don't have a democracy. Democracy doesn't work, right? If enough people support a candidate, that candidate wins every single time. That's the bottom line. And I want anyone to challenge what I'm saying. Tell me if Bernie Sanders, every single time that he ran, whether in the primary or the general, he got more votes than every other candidate combined, right? Let's just focus on the main ones. Then sometimes you get a lot of bunch of people running, whatever. I'm talking about the main ones, right? So if it's him against Biden, he gets twice the votes that Biden gets. I'm sorry, he wins the primary. How does he not win the primary, right? Some would say they'll make it so that he can't get in the primary somehow. They change some rule. Listen, man. Our politicians get their power from us. They cannot do more than we allow them to do. If they come with some bullshit about, oh, Bernie, he can't run, or we're not doing a primary. Again, I'm going to give an extreme example, right, just to drive the point home. If you have, I'll bring it back a little bit. Let's say you have 200 million Americans that are like Bernie bros. Bernie, right? 200 million Americans. You think the Democratic Party could just be like, we're not having a primary? What are you, nuts? And that's the beauty of democracy. You cannot go against the will of an overwhelming majority of the people who not only realize they have a democracy, but they are ready to use it. Meaning, they say, listen, this is wrong. You cannot block Bernie from being in the primary. You cannot just not have a primary. You must have a primary. And any politician in the Democratic Party that is not fighting to make sure we have a primary, you will be removed. You're not going to be able to win an election allowing for there not to be a primary. That is the power of democracy. You vote with consequences. The people you vote for have to deliver, and if they don't deliver, you fire them. Right? But unfortunately, we're caught up in this scam. As long as you can keep your base more afraid of the other party than they are concerned with what they want in their lives, from healthcare to their finances, if they prioritize their fear of the other party, you don't have to do much of anything. And you can continue winning the elections. People will continue to vote for you, even though they hate you, they think you're corrupt, they think you are useless. They will continue voting for you no matter what, as long as they're more afraid of the other side winning. That is the scam. That is why the status quo just continues to survive, right? An analogy. This is the one I love to use. Democracy is a double-barrel shotgun, right? And all the problems that Americans deal with in terms of healthcare and not making enough money from their jobs, crime. Imagine that all those things, if we could bundle it up, it's a black bear. Democracy, a double-barrel shotgun, right? Loaded up, ready to go. What the American people have been doing for decades is holding this double-barrel shotgun with the barrel aimed at the ground as the black bear approaches. The black bear rips out your arm and your other arm and your foot, all the while you're standing there with this gun aimed at the ground and complaining and whining. Oh, this stupid gun, it doesn't work, it's useless. What's the point of this gun if, I have a gun and the bear still attacks me? And look, it's just ripping out my arm. What's the point of this gun? It's not stopping anything. Democracy is self-service. It's not automatic. We have to engage democracy. That means voting with demands and consequences and threats. This is what I demand. If you're not promising these things, I'm not voting for you. Right? And if you promise these things, you better deliver. And I better see you working your ass off and fighting to make this happen. You better have a really good excuse for not delivering at least most of this. And anything you don't deliver, I don't want to hear any lame excuses about parliamentarian. No. You better put on a good goddamn show that you fought like hell to make these things happen, and somehow you just couldn't pull it off. Because anything less than that, you're out. And we're going to keep voting out people until we get politicians that deliver. When that starts happening, that is when a clear message is sent to these politicians that it is over. The age of you making big promises, winning, and then just doing whatever is over. Because you can no longer stay in power for long doing that. Because you see, this person won one election, and then they didn't really do much, and that was it. They were out. This other politician, same thing. All these one-term people, because the American people raised their barrels and aimed it at the black bear, instead of continuing to aim it at the ground, complaining about how democracy doesn't work. Oh, we have democracy and not do anything. Fucking raise the barrel and aim it at the things that you want. It's not automatic. You don't just simply stand with a gun and automatically it protects you. That is not the way it works. You have to fight. But Americans don't want to fight. We want a savior. We want to elect Jesus. Hallelujah. That's what we want. We want Jesus to come save us. Jesus is not coming to save us. We got to save ourselves. And the way we save ourselves is we have to actually use democracy. Voting without a demand and without a threat, without any consequence, is a waste of time. It's not that the voting doesn't work. It's not that democracy doesn't work. It's you are not working. If all you do is vote, you're wasting your time. Because simply putting a vote and doing nothing else, that is giving the politicians a blank check. What reason do they have to pay you any mind if there's no consequences for not delivering? Why would a politician ever listen to anything the American people have to say if there is no consequence of not delivering? That is what we've been doing for decades. We elect politicians on big promises, they don't deliver, and then because we're so preoccupied with the other party, at least we don't have that other party in power, we keep voting for these same losers who don't deliver for us. We are the problem. Democracy works. Democracy absolutely works. We could have had Bernie Sanders as a president. We could have done that. But we didn't do what was needed to get done. You want to win an election, you have to have the most votes, right? You have to have the most votes. You have to have enough people that are willing to fight. We don't have that. That is the problem. It's not democracy, right? I don't care how much money these politicians spend, these parties spend. There's nothing they can do that can even touch the power of the American people. We have 200 million Americans strong fighting for something. Best believe it's going to happen, especially once we start punishing these politicians for not delivering. But right now, we don't punish them. Joe Biden can promise the world, not deliver, and still win elections, right? That's the problem. Democracy works. Stop listening to the Young Turks and their bullshit. Oh, we don't have a democracy. Oh, look, Congress, they just do whatever. Then, we're going to lose our democracy. If Trump wins, we're going to lose a democracy that we don't have. Do we have it or not have it? Bullshitters, entertainers like the Young Turks, they are one of the biggest problems we have in this country. Brainwashing the American people with their entertainment content that's focused on views and clicks and not on delivering truth. Finally, and once again, we definitely have a democracy. It absolutely works. And there is nothing more powerful in the United States of America than the power that we, the people of the United States, have. We have the most power. Don't let anybody tell you any bullshit otherwise. Not the Young Turks, not any politician, nobody. If enough of us rise up and fight for something, we gonna get it. Especially when we start making consequences. Politicians that don't deliver, we start making consequences. That's when things change. Until then, keep whining and complaining. Oh, democracy doesn't work. That's fine. You keep whining and waiting for Jesus to come to save you. Jesus ain't coming, man. This is a baby channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.
So my mind is free. Watch the problems of the world go by like balloons. If tomorrow come now, I might be too